Beware the Fish by Korman. Beware the fish. The fish. William R. Sturgeon, headmaster of McDonald Hall, a kind, understanding yet firm administrator who is secretly very fond of his students. The fish, an unknown terrorist leader who is using public communications to send messages to members of his evil organization. The fish, a large labeled diagram of the Pacific salmon that hangs on the wall in the room of eccentric genius Elmer Grimsdale. Much ado about spinach. Few people would argue that McDonald Hall, located east of Toronto just off Highway 48, is not the best boarding school for boys in Canada. Even the most severe critics of modern education point to the ivy-covered walls of the hall as a symbol of the happy blend of tradition, enlightened administration, and progressive educational policies that have resulted in a rare combination of pleased parents and contented students. Why, then, are rumblings echoing from the dining hall? Yes, okay, we need another vegetable, but why spinach? Exclaimed Boots O'Neill in disgust. Stewed green leaves, agreed Bruno Walton, pushing the spinach as far from the rest of his dinner as he could without actually toppling it off his plate onto the tray. Last week they started serving raisins and figs instead of cake and ice cream. Now it's spinach instead of French fries. If this keeps up, I'll be the healthiest person ever to starve to death at this school. Yuck! The other boys at the dining hall table murmured their agreement. I told you before, said Larry Wilson, the headmaster's office messenger. It's the dietitian. I heard Mr. Sturgeon tell her to cut costs, but keep the nutrition the same. They're trying to kill us all, moaned Big Wilbur Hackenschlemmer, who was used to having triple helpings of everything. You cannot possibly die, put in studious Elmer Grimsdale. On this diet, it is nutritionally and chemically balanced. He methodically deposited some spinach into his mouth. You can die if you don't eat it, retorted Bruno. We're starving. This isn't food. Seems to me McDonald Hall is doing a lot of cost-cutting lately, complained Boots. Yesterday, someone kicked a soccer ball out onto the highway and it got run over by a truck. End of ball, end of game. Can you imagine a school this size owning only one soccer ball? And they've stopped our evening snack, added Wilbur miserably. And they've stopped our evening snack, added Wilbur miserably. I never considered it, said Elmer thoughtfully, but the science laboratory is very low on materials and they're not being replenished. The big microscope has been broken for a week, but Mr. Hubert has made no move to have it repaired. No cereal at bedtime, moaned Wilbur. The office is crazy for saving paper, added Larry, and Mr. Sturgeon is using straight pins instead of paper clips and staples. At least the fish gets to eat food, said Wilbur sadly. I bet Mrs. Sturgeon doesn't cook garbage like this for him. And the thermostats are nailed at 20 in the dormitories, Boots pointed out. Bruno and I almost froze to death last night. The food used to be good here, Wilbur reminisced. Suddenly, Bruno pounded his fist on the table. The others jumped and turned their eyes toward him. Something's wrong, he declared. The hall was never like this before. The fish always used to stand up for us and get us the things we needed. Why isn't he doing it now? Nobody answered. Larry, Bruno went on, a determined gleam in his eyes, when you're on duty around the office, keep the lookout. If we can find out why this is happening, we can do something about it. You've got it, agreed Larry. I'll try. Mildred, Mr. Sturgeon, headmaster of McDonald Hall, announced to his wife. I see no alternative. I am going to resign. Now, William, she said soothingly, what good would that do? The situation has become intolerable, he exclaimed, pacing the small room of the headmaster's residence. The budget is constantly being cut. My students are being deprived, not just of treats and luxuries, but of necessary school supplies as well. I cannot sit by and watch this going on, yet I cannot do anything about it. My only course is resignation. That's the easy way out, his wife accused him. You'd be abandoning our boys if you just quit. Why can't you stay on and fight? Mr. Sturgeon stopped pacing and eased himself into the rocking chair by the window. "I'd love to fight," he replied, "but I have nothing to fight with. The trustees do. Enrollment is down and costs are soaring. They're not giving me enough money to run McDonald Hall properly. The fact is, Mildred, if this keeps up, we're going to lose the school." "Oh dear, can it be that bad?" He nodded emphatically. "At the last board meeting, there was some serious talk of putting the land and buildings up for sale." "But this has been our home for 18 years. The headmaster shrugged unhappily. "What can I do?" he sighed. "But you do have a point. The captain should go down with the ship. I'll stay on." Friday evening, just before midnight, the silence of the moonlit campus was disturbed by the squeaking of the window of room 306 in dormitory 3. Bruno Walton and Boots O'Neill scrambled over the sill and jumped to the ground. They darted across the tree-lined campus, crossed the highway, and nimbly scaled the wrought-iron fence around Miss Scrimmage's finishing school for young ladies. "It's a good thing we've got this place handy," said Bruno in an undertone. "If Kathy and Diane weren't feeding us, we'd starve to death." He picked up a handful of pebbles and tossed them at a second-story window. Kathy Burton's dark hair appeared over the sill. "Your provisions will be right down," she called softly. A few minutes later, a large paper bag came sailing out the window and landed at their feet. Printed on the green bag was the message, Happy eating, courtesy of Miss Scrimmage's finishing school for young ladies, Kathy Burton and Diane Grant, caterers. Boots looked up at the open window. "You just saved a couple of lives," he called. "Our pleasure," answered Kathy. "Any time. Just don't expect trading stamps," she waved and shut the window. The boys grabbed the food parcel and retraced their steps to the McDonald Hall campus and their own dormitory 3. They climbed back into their room. Boots shut the window as, still in the dark, Bruno hurled himself onto his bed. There was a wild, terrified scream. Squinting in the moonlight, Boots could just make out the figure of his roommate struggling on the floor with an unknown assailant. Without hesitation, he threw himself into the battle. Arms and legs thrashed. Muffled grunts filled the room. Boots could feel the intruder slowly forcing him into a headlock. He reached out, blindly grabbed a foot, and started twisting. There was a sudden click, and the light came on. The arm around Boots's neck was Bruno's. The hand twisting Bruno's foot was Boots's. Standing by the light switch, pale and shaking, was Larry Wilson. "Douse that light!" Bruno gasped angrily. "Do you want the fish on our necks?" Larry switched off the overhead light. "Sorry," he said, still stunned. "What the heck are you doing in our room?" demanded Boots, as he and Bruno disentangled themselves and stood up. "You asked me to keep my ears open," Larry complained. "I came here to report, not to get beaten up. You guys were out, so I lay down to wait for you. I guess I fell asleep. Do you think the racket woke up the housemaster?" Boots laughed. "Wake up, Mr. Fudge? Don't you know about him? Old Fudgy wouldn't wake up if an express train passed under his bed," said Bruno. "The first year we were here at the hall, Boots and I came back from scrimmages one night and climbed into his room by mistake. If that kind of laughing in his ear won't wake him up, nothing will." "You said you heard something," Boots reminded their visitor. "What's up? You aren't going to like this very much," Larry said nervously. "Oh, no," groaned Bruno. "I suppose they've eliminated lunch." "Worse than that," said Larry. "The fish has given orders to close up dormitory 3. There was a long moment of stunned silence. Bruno was the first to find his voice. "No," he said quietly. "They can't do that. This is our home." "It's being done," said Larry. "Tomorrow the orders will go out telling you where to move." "We won't go," stormed Boots. "We'll barricade ourselves in and hold out to the end." "Why?" cried Bruno. "Why would the fish do this to us? Why?" "Well," said Larry, "no one has actually said it, but it looks to me as if McDonald Hall is going broke. They can't afford to run 3 dorms at once." "Then let them close 1 or 2, howled Bruno. "But not ours. It's not fair." "What if you get sent to one room and me to another?" put in Boots in a strangled voice. No, soothed Larry. "You guys are both being sent to 201. There was another shocked silence. "Elmer Drimsdale," Bruno and Boots howled in unison. "I can't live with Elmer Drimsdale," cried Boots. "He's crazy." "Oh, no," moaned Bruno, who had once been Elmer's roommate. No. "You guys are friends of Elmer's," Larry said, mystified. "Yes, but that's a lot different from living with him," Bruno exclaimed. Elmer keeps ants and fish in the bathtub and plants all over the place. And he's always performing some experiment that takes up half the room. And he gets up at 6 in the morning. What have we done to deserve this? Asked Boots in despair. Bruno felt around in the dark, located the bag from Kathy and Diane, and ripped it open. Let's eat, he suggested glumly. I always suffer better on a full stomach. The three boys began to eat the assortment of cookies, fruit, and cheese filched for them by Miss Scrimmage's girls. I'm getting sent to dormitory 2 as well, Larry told them as he savored the almost forgotten taste of a chocolate chip cookie. I'll be across the hall in 204. 204? Bruno laughed despite his unhappiness. That's Sidney Rampolsky. Be sure to pay up your accident insurance. That guy could trip over a moonbeam. At least he doesn't keep ants, moaned Boots. You know, said Bruno thoughtfully, we're losing sight of the most important thing in this whole mess. If McDonald Hall really is going broke, then we won't only be out of a dormitory, we'll be out of a school. We're going broke, all right, said Larry. Today I took a phone call from a real estate company. Maybe the hall is being put up for sale. In the darkness of room 306, Bruno Walton's face took on a look of grim determination. That does it, he exclaimed. They're starving us, they're forcing us to go out of our dorm, and now they're selling our school right out from under us. We won't let this happen. Boots, who had long ago learned to recognize the beginnings of one of Bruno's crusades, felt a twinge of uneasiness. This is all management and high finance, he protested. It's even above the fish. What can we do about it? Or what can we do about it? Well, I know what we can't do, replied Bruno. We can't just sit back and let the hall go down the drain. And that's exactly why the McDonald Hall Preservation Society is meeting tomorrow at lunch. And that's the end of that chapter.